Alright guys, welcome back to the video on the budget motorcycle. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start to remove the carb. I'm just going to go through maybe the major steps. I'll kind of do it and then explain what I've done. First thing we're going to do is remove the air cleaner. I haven't even removed this yet to look at it. But the backstory on this bike is it will start with the choke on and run fine with the choke on, but as soon as you push the choke in, it cuts off, or if you try to give it any gas, it cuts off. So we're going to take that off first, and that's going to be the first step we're doing. Alright, to remove this air cleaner, mine is a 10mm. This doesn't look like it's a factory nut that's on here. Looks like somebody just put a little nylon nut on it. It may be the factory one, I'm not sure. But so we're just going to remove this. Like I said, it was a 10mm, and remove the air cleaner here. Let's get the cover off. And alright, well, what is this? It looks almost like somebody's done some plastic welding in here or put some epoxy or something in. They may have rejetted this carburetor, and I know this is, I want to say one of the breather, should be a breather hole here. So we're going to go ahead and take the rest of this off, see what they've done. Alright, we got that cover off, and you can see from the carburetor here that it's gunked up. I mean, you can just see the gas on it. You can see down on here the bottom, there is a droplet of stale looking gas coming out of this carb. So carb's definitely going to come off, and I'm sure that's what the problem is. Now, one thing on this bike, I have not received my manual yet. I ordered a manual, and again, doing this on a budget just like you would if you were buying your first bike. And what I did not buy a brand new manual. I tried to find one on a budget, and so I found a manual on Facebook Marketplace for 10 bucks, and usually those are around anywhere from $30 to $40. So I found one for 10 bucks. The guy would ship it for $8, so I got one for half price, basically $18, and it looks pretty good shape. Should be coming in any day now. So so I don't have the manual on this bike yet, and I would recommend, if you don't have any experience working on motorcycles, definitely get the manual first. And so I'm going to continue looking into what I need to do to pull this carb. I think I need to pull the tank off as well, to just get better access to everything. And so I'm gonna look and see what I need to do next here. I might as well start tearing it apart. Let me set this down, and I'm gonna try to get the tank off, or at least get the bolts loose to get the tank off. And I know on the petcock on these, they're supposed to be able to, you're supposed to be able to disconnect it. The fuel line here without fuel coming out of it, because the petcock is supposed to be vacuum operated. So you have to make sure it's not on the prime setting. I'll show you what I mean. Let's walk around to the other side of the bike. So if you're not familiar with these Kawasaki's, down is on. You can see the on there. To the right is prime. So that bypasses this air suction line here, or yeah, I guess it would be a type of primer line or suction line, to that when you crank the motor over, it builds a vacuum to pull the gas out of the petcock. Then you've got reserve at the top. So as long as this is down on, gas should not come out of this once I disconnect this hose. I'm going to check this hose too. The hose feels pretty good. Most of the time when they're old, they get hard and brittle. That hose feels very flexible and feels pretty good. So we're going to look at getting it disconnected on the other side. All right, to remove the tank, you have the one bolt here underneath the seat, and then you have another bolt that's in here underneath of this dash. So I removed this one bolt here on the bottom part of the dash. Is an 8mm, and that takes this part off, and then you have some connectors under the tank to disconnect, so then you can get to the front bolt that is up there that holds the front of the tank on. So I'm going to work on getting this out, and I'm going to be careful not to tear your gasket up, and we're going to remove this dash, and then we'll see if we can get to that other bolt to take the tank out. Alright, here's the connectors we had to take off. This black connector and this white connector, and they have black and white connectors on the bottom of the dash, and then the speedometer cable. So we have those disconnected now. Now we need to take this bolt out here and this bolt out back here on the back of the tank. Looks like a 12mm, but I've been known to be wrong. So we'll see what size those are and take those loose and get ready to pull the tank up so we can see what all I know we need to disconnect stuff over at the petcock, especially that vacuum line that goes to the primer. So let me find out what size bolts these are, and we'll go from there, start disconnecting stuff to this carb. Okay, so next what I did was I pulled this one breather line off right here. My thumb pointing right there, came off there. I loosened the one, I pulled the little clip back for the fuel line. Take it back over here. And I loosened this little clip here that pulled up from the breather line here. So that's the fuel line they have running through there. So I'm going to come back around on this side. And then I just broke the bolts loose here to remove this little part that holds the carburetor in place. Going to look at it, how it goes in there. So we're just going to remove this now. I guess that's a adjuster for probably the idle hanging down. I didn't even notice that hanging there. Don't know how I didn't notice it, but oh well. I guess it sits behind the air cleaner, so you can probably adjust the idle and get that set right. Alright, so actually we can just let that hang right there. I like to put the bolts back where they came out of so we know where they go. Alright, so yeah, that gas is like varnish that's on the bottom there. Smells terrible. Alright, so I'm going to put the camera down for a second. I know I've got to loosen up the throttle cables. Thank you. Throttle cables. I have to loosen up the throttle cables so that they can release from the back of the carb as well. Okay, have the tank off. Now I will tell you real quick that there is a line that runs in the back, or runs up from the, I believe it's the drain on the tank, and the hose runs all the way back through here and tucks in the back. I'm sure it's a drain at the top around the fuel neck, so when water gets there it'll drain out of the tank. Pretty sure that's what it is. Didn't want to flip the tank over to look at it. Also, when I was taking the fuel line off of the petcock, it just ripped right off. So glad we found that the fuel lines needed to be replaced. So that's no problem since we're doing this already. So we got that off. Now I know back in here where my finger is, I don't know if I can get a camera angle in there, but there's a boot that you slide the carburetor up on the intake boot there. So I have to loosen that up as well. Okay, so I took the screw loose back here, but it pulled off from the wrong side of the carb. That was just the fuel line that fell out. So they say that one's a little more difficult to get in, but we'll figure it out when the time comes. But I get the carb out. I'm going to drain the carb now. Drain all the rest of the fuel out of it, because when I moved it, some started pulling out and it does not smell very good. So I'm going to do that next. There's a little drain right here that you can drain the carburetor out, and then I'm going to loosen up these throttle cables so we can take those out. Okay, so what I did next was I used this impact screwdriver here, and I recommend you get one of these to take this screw loose here and the screw loose underneath this throttle housing. I already removed the screw here, and we're going to take this throttle housing apart to release the tension down here on the carburetor. Alright, so the next thing I did here, got the throttle loose here. We removed the throttle cables from the tube, and this front one I marked yellow. I guess that would be the return one, and I marked yellow on this one down here so I'd know which one went back there. Then you just release these, and I pulled the choke lever just through to come out with it, and pull these out, and the carb should be out. Oops. Sorry. So now the carb's out and should be good to go. Sorry about that. I tried to drain the gas out of that bottom float bowl, and it was stopped up and didn't want to even come out. So just going to run this gas out of here, and then we'll start taking the carburetor apart next.